I'm Fletcher Roden, and this is Tracking the Lone Wolf, based on my new book, Tracking the Lone Wolf, The Sigma at Work, at Home, and at Play. Today on Tracking the Lone Wolf, Emotional Intelligence. Tracking the Lone Wolf is a twice-monthly show with lots of invaluable information for just about everyone. So I suggest that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, buy the book in paperback or Kindle format or audiobook format from Audible or other platforms. I'm a public speaker, and you're welcome to visit the website trackingthelonewolf.com for more information. Emotional intelligence. A lot of people know what intellectual intelligence is, sometimes referred to as IQ. Emotional intelligence is likewise referred to as EQ. It's harder to test. Some people don't even consider it a thing. Some people would tell you that emotional intelligence is, in fact, a contradiction in terms, because emotion and reason are in a constant state of conflict with one another. In point of fact, this is true, to a degree. The human psyche is always balancing emotion and reason. Both are always present. One always dominates over the other. One can never be equally emotional and reasonable. One can only be emotional or reasonable. However, there is such a thing as emotional intelligence, and it's a basic skill set which everybody should know. It's one of the things that brings to mind why my book is so important, not just for Sigmas, who are 1% of the population, though it is crucial for them, not just for the other 99% of the population who have to deal with Sigmas and who have to deal with each other, and it is crucial for them. Not only is it crucial for teenagers, because it gives them a life manual of how to understand themselves and one another. It's a primer on psychology and leadership skills, which everybody should have. There isn't a person who couldn't benefit from reading my book, Tracking the Lone Wolf, The Sigma, at Work, at Home, and at Play. And one of the subjects is the skill set of emotional intelligence. It's quite easy to understand, and yet it's amazing how few people have any grasp of it at all. Here's how it works. It is a 6-part skill set divided into 2 subsections. The first subsection is you, your emotions. The second subset is the other person. This can be one person, this can be a number of people. Let's assume it's one other person. Each of these subsets has 3 skills, which you must master in order to complete the 6 and to have full control over your emotional intelligence. They're remarkably easy to remember because they're the very same in each instance. For you, the origin of your emotions, the trigger of your emotions, the control of your emotions. What does that mean? Well, the origin. What creates your emotional tumult? If you have emotional reactions to certain things, what creates them? What causes them? Triggers. What triggers them? What external influences bring them about? Control. What can you do to manage those triggers, to avoid them bringing out these emotional responses? That's part 1. three parts in part one: the origin of your emotions, the triggers of your emotions, and the control of your emotions. Subsection 2 is the other person, but it's the same as here: the origin of their emotions, the triggers of their emotions, and the control of their emotions. Easy to remember because it's the same on both sides. The two subsections are really easy to remember: you and the other person. So now you know. Of course, knowing and doing are not necessarily the same thing. Easier said and told than saddled and rode, they used to say. Knowing the origin of your own emotions can be difficult. It may require years of therapy. Some people are unwilling to do it. They don't want to go there. They don't want to know. But that's going to hobble their progress toward emotional intelligence. Because if you don't know what causes your emotions, how can you know what triggers them? Well, you can identify your triggers by analysis. You can reverse engineer the process and figure out when you get mad and why, based on when. If you get mad when you're always around a certain person, that person triggers you. Now, it's likely that that trigger relates to the cause of your emotion. But if you're unwilling to go back all the way to the cause, just go back to the trigger. Just figure out when and where you get mad. Is it traffic that sets you off? Are you a road rage, emotional, ignorant? Ignoramus, I guess, emotional ignoramus? Well, don't drive in traffic. Even if you can't go all the way back to your childhood and discover why you are frustrated with things that you cannot control, why you have the inability to acquiesce and to give up control when you have to, why you always feel that you have to be in control, where that stems from is one concern. If you won't do that, at least figure out what causes you to explode, let's say in this case traffic, which you can't control, which stifles your progress in ways you find frustrating. Then just don't drive in traffic times. I grew up in Los Angeles. I used to go to places 2 hours early to avoid a traffic crunch, or go to a restaurant for 2 hours to avoid a traffic crunch on the way home. So you have to know your triggers, and then you have to know how to control them and master them. Avoid them. If you are compelled to overeat and you drive past a bakery with the delicious smelling pastries, that's your trigger, then change your trigger. Change your behavior to avoid the trigger. Take a different route to work. Avoid the pastry shop. It's not that hard. It's a lot easier. Part one of emotional intelligence is a lot easier than part two, because you can discover the root of your own emotional tumult if you have the courage and the fortitude. And you can discover your triggers if you just sit down and think about it. And you can avoid those triggers if you exert some discipline over your own behavior. That's part one. But part two of emotional intelligence involves the emotions of others. And it's much harder to understand the origins of other people's emotions, generally. However, sometimes because you're from an objective standpoint, you can tell you can decipher other people's emotional origins better than your own. It's oftentimes easier to see the speck in your neighbor's eye than the log in your own eye, if I may be biblical for a moment. So, from an objective standpoint, you can maybe see where the other person's emotions are coming from. And maybe you can see from an objective standpoint where their triggers are. Now, it's hard for you to control their behavior once those triggers are set. And honestly, it's hard to control their triggers. If a person is triggered by you and you work together in a workplace, then you can't really You can't quit your job in order to give them a break. You are you. If you trigger them, they have to deal with it. They have to acquire emotional intelligence of their own. Emotional intelligence doesn't mean you handle it for everybody. It means you have to know who you're dealing with and how to deal with them. They still have to deal with their own emotions. But if, for example, you know somebody who is a vegan and an animal rights activist, and you go out of your way to eat a hamburger in front of them, well, you're not showing any emotional intelligence, because whatever caused their veganism and their animal activism, you know what's going to trigger it, and you know you're not going to be able to manage that emotion. In the workplace, let's take it to the 3 theaters. In the professional theater, if you're in a management position, you're going to want to keep certain personalities away from one another. You're going to want to know what causes this person to go off and what this person's habits are. You're not going to want to put an introvert with an extrovert necessarily, because that's going to cause a disruption in their emotional intelligence. The extrovert is not likely to be very emotionally intelligent as regards the emotions of the introvert, because they process thoughts and feelings a different way. So there's a natural dichotomy there that as the manager you want to know, you want to understand. And if someone comes to you with a problem, you want to know what is triggering that problem so that you can manage the behavior, control the behavior. If you cannot understand its origins, which is good to do, you can at least manage it. You can at least control it. In the home, it's much more crucial to understand the origins of the emotions of others, because this is your family. This is your spouse. These are your children. This is you. So much more so in the workplace, emotional intelligence is crucial to a healthy home. You have to know why your children feel the way they do. You have to know what they're feeling and where those feelings come from. Get them early. When they are children is when these things originate. So you must be a leader and a manager and know your own emotions too, because they're learning from you. So if you have emotional outbursts, your children are going to learn that from you. And if you are going to be emotionally intelligent as a parent, then you're going to find out that the origin of their emotions is probably you. And you're going to have to go back and trace your own emotions to their origin, which you might find are your parents. So emotional intelligence is crucial in the home. It shapes the generations, and it touches everything in your child's life. All 3 forums depend upon emotional intelligence. So if your children have it, they will succeed in the professional theater, in the familial theater, and in the social theater. In dating, part of the social theater, emotional intelligence is crucial. You have to know why the other person you're dating, if you are going to emotionally bind yourself to a person, you have to know where their emotions come from, what touches them off, and how to deal with them when they come up. That is crucial. And your own emotions too, because this person is going to be very closely affected, very, very closely associated, and very positively or negatively affected, very strongly affected by your emotions. So you have to be able to know what triggers your emotions and how to control them when you are with someone else in an intimate way, because they will be affected by your emotions. Emotional intelligence, crucial. Let's talk about the Sigma. Now, the Sigma does not bandy their emotions. The Sigma is protective of their emotions. The Sigma is a trusting, protective, loving kind of a personality type, but also tied to the past and introverted with their thoughts and feelings. So when they are hurt, when they're emotionally hurt, the emotional intelligence of the sigma is to withdraw. We may not know the origin of our sadness or our emotion, whatever it is, but we tend to internalize it. We internalize our emotions. So we have an innate sense, however, of the intelligence of others, because the sigma is perceptive and judgmental. And when I say judgmental, I don't mean critical, but I mean we'll go over that soon, but there is a judgment aspect to the sigma personality, as there is a perception aspect. It's sort of an outsiders looking in. It's a kind of objectivity that the lone wolf has. It's part of what creates the lone wolf, is the natural objectivity, which is created by the way we process our feelings and our thoughts. So emotionally, in terms of emotional intelligence, we're better at reading other people's emotions than we are our own. But it's as crucial for us as it is for anybody, because even though we're lone wolves, we're not alone. We're still in society, and we still need each other. So that brings us to the end of our look at emotional intelligence. You can learn a lot more about this in my book, Tracking the Lone Wolf, the Sigma at home, at work, at home, and at play. It's available in paperback and Kindle and audiobook format from Audible and other formats. I invite you to visit our website, trackingthelonewolf.com. I'm Fletcher Roden. This has been Tracking the Lone Wolf. See you next time.